Everybody, welcome back to the Up and Adam Show. My name is Adam Lupis. Thank you all for joining me once again. I'm so happy to be back in the studio recording another great interview for you guys. And I want to show you guys all this vinyl. You guys know I love collecting records. It's Casey and the Sunshine Band, one of my favorite bands of all time. And we're actually sitting with the legend himself, Casey. How's it going, man?
Going really good, Adam. It's a great day. I'm in Miami and it's a beautiful day.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, well, it's funny. Speaking of Miami, it's always sunny there, and in your logo, you got the beautiful sun on there too. So you're it just feels like you're just always a positive guy, bringing like the sunshine in everybody's lives. I think you can attest to something like that, eh?
Try to be, I mean, it's easy to be negative, so I just try to keep it up and positive as much as I can. It's not
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Well, especially with all the, the stuff that with the pandemic that happened and there's so much negativity going on in the world, we have to be that light in everybody's lives, I think, in order to stay sane in this crazy world, you know?
thankfully, that's what the music does and did. And I mean, when I first started writing the music, we were at a period in the mid 70s where it was kind of dark and music sounded dark and down and dreary. And it was the first time for the oil crisis and stuff like that. And we were all going through some kind of weird thing. And I just wanted to make this music that was just all up tempo, uplifting. And, um, that's what I concentrated on doing in the music. And, thankfully it's lasted the test of time and still brings happiness to lots of people. And it's great to know that I had that kind of an impact on people's lives.
Of course. And if I'm not mistaken, it's 51 years that you've been since you started, right?
Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, it's crazy, man. You along with a lot of other icons, you guys pioneered the 70s, the dance music, the disco. I know you like to classify your band as well as like funk and it's just so unique, and especially how, like you mentioned, back in the 70s, the early 70s, mid 70s, the music was kind of dark, and you guys did something that I feel like revolutionized the way people listen to music and express themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it changed a lot. I mean, I think it scared some people, especially like rockers, because it's like it started taking over everything, and rock music became not as popular as it seemed like, or whatever. I mean, that wasn't the intention of it all, or whatever, but um, it definitely uh, frightened some people, I think.
Absolutely. And like, what has motivated you to continue, performing and doing what you do for all these years, for again, over 50 years? Like what's been the secret?
Well, I mean, I love what I do, and my my happiest moments are when I'm on that stage. It's my one chance to connect with the audience. The audience knows everything about the artist, and until we get on that stage and actually can see your faces and and sing with you and just have an evening with you, it makes it even more special and gives me some sort of a connection now with the fans. And there's no greater feeling that I can think of. I mean, that's better than that moment that I'm on the stage and just having a good time with everyone and just feeling everybody's energy and they're feeling mine and just it's a great moment.
Yeah, and what I love about your music is the lyrics, right? Like, and that's what keeps it catchy and everybody can groove to it, right? When you hear like, that's the way, and it's repetitive, or like, get down tonight, dun, dun, get down. It's the repetitiveness of it is what I feel like is also special.
Deliberately done the right way. I would guess you would consider me more of a commercial songwriter than a storyteller. There's different types of songwriters, and I'm probably more on the commercial end. Like the Beatles, when they first came out, their songs were more on the commercial side, and as they got older and grew or whatever, the commercial side of them went away, sort of like, because like she loves you, yeah, 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 she loves you, yeah, 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 she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
or something like that. But the other thing, I worked in a record store and, people would come in and they wouldn't know the name of a song. And so they would, like try to hum it or whatever. And hopefully one of us knew what they were thinking or the song they wanted. So I think when I started, writing the songs, I thought, I want to make sure, these they know the title of that song when they come in to buy the record so that, they don't have to guess it and I don't miss a sale.
That's smart. See, that's where the business side comes into play. That's funny. Well, like you also like sang in it's arguably the greatest era I find, like the 70s when you started, that was in my opinion the greatest era for movies, for music. I also love the 80s even though I didn't grow up in the 70s or 80s. I'm infatuated with those two decades. Just
Right.
pop culture, the movies, the music. But the 70s is what pioneered everything, right? And you got to also perform alongside people like, for example, Donna Summer, who you were good friends with, or even like the Bee Gees were so popular back then as well, right? All you guys were like a phenomenon, right?
I mean, Bee Gees were popular when I was growing up, in the 60s. They did the whole Saturday Night Fever thing, and I was lucky to be a part of that. Yeah, it was definitely the 70s, 80s were definitely magical times, I always felt it was like the celebration of all the things that, I guess my parents and the 50s and 60s generation were out there. They were picketing for peace and love and everyone just accepting, one another for what you are and, the ecology and the earth and all these things, and it was finally the celebration of all that stuff finally coming to fruition,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, it was just definitely a great time. It was the end of really real music when you went in the studios and actually everything was a different, an individual, performing the songs and so in each record, in each composition, you felt each one of those individual musicians and the feeling that was coming from them, whether it was the drums or the guitar or the keyboards or the vocals and everything. Because like when we did the vocals, the choruses, you'd have to do it, exactly how it was on the record. There was no like doing it one time and then flying it everywhere like we do today.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? Well, it's different now. Even just the way we listen to music and how we just express it. Like, for example, I collect records, right? When I play a record, it's like an experience for me. When I listen to things on Spotify, I don't appreciate it as much because it's so readily available and I'll just skip it. When you play a vinyl, you're forced to listen to it, and I feel like you can actually appreciate music more.
I loved having all the information that was on the record labels and stuff. You could look
Hmm.
at the see who produced it, who wrote it, and then if you had the album, or I mean, for a while, when CDs were happening, there was still information in the little booklet or whatever. But I always enjoyed like seeing who was on some of those records and or whatever. And now it's just like you hear the music and you don't really know who wrote it, you don't know anything about it anymore. And it's just like so quick and I mean, it's kind of amazing how you can listen to stuff now. To things. I think for somebody new, it's a better opportunity for a lot of new artists or people that are not known to get their stuff out there. Whereas before we had to depend solely on a radio station playing the record. You know what I mean? And maybe never being discovered at all. And look what YouTube did for Justin Bieber. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. So it's definitely given a great platform to everyone, but there's nothing like rec vinyl.
Absolutely. It's classic, man. That's what why I'm so infatuated by it because that was the start to everything, And you look at it and you go, wow, this is where we came from and now look where we are today, how it progressed. But like look at, for example, like your friendship with Donna Summer, right? I brought up how like she was an icon for she's gonna be an icon for years to come. Always, she'll always be remembered for that. And during that time when you were performing too, especially like I would say more in the 80s, is when people had this stigma towards like disco music or dance music, and I want to know how both you and Donna like I guess navigated that.
It's really weird that people felt that disco was dead or whatever. Disco became bigger in the 80s and into the 90s than it ever was in the 70s. And I mean, you couldn't be more disco than Madonna, you know, and it just became more technical or or electronic. And even when I did my interviews and people would say, where do you think music's going to go? I would always say it's going to become more, electronic. Even some of the first record I ever, one of my first biggest hits was kind of, electronic drums. Rock Your Baby was electronic drums from a Lowry organ. It was already pre-programmed drums on an organ. So it's just always so interesting how everyone wants to you know, it's like they wanted to get rid of this word disco or whatever it was, but it's just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. It's 2024 right now, and it's still bigger than ever. I mean, it's just insane that something that everyone tried to get rid of or tried to denounce or put down or whatever you want to call it, you know, never made any sense to me or Donna, I think. We just kept doing what we do, and that's all you can do, really.
But I wonder why though people always had to put it down though for some reason. I love all that stuff. I find that's it's preference. People may not like it, but I don't understand why there's that stigma to it.
To me, it was always just dance music or R&B music or whatever you want to call it. It became disco when Saturday Night Fever happened, and Saturday Night Fever was recorded, took place in a discotheque or whatever. So they started calling it disco music. It was so interesting. I think the media played an important, sadly, and the guy that started the whole controversy over it or did the disco demolition and disco sucks thing even came to apologize, and he said it was the worst mistake he ever made in his life. And the thing is, I think people, when he did that demolition thing in Chicago, whatever, I think people thought it was happening all over the world. It was only happening in that one place, and the media blew it up so bad. And I think there was a thing about, again, back to what I said before, I think, it was taking over and changing the sound of music. It was like when Elvis Presley came on and he changed the sound of music. The Beatles came on and they changed. There was always this anti whatever against them, and so then now we were the next thing to be anti against.
Ah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, that because that is true. Everyone like if you watch like the Elvis movie, for example, like they really they dive deep into that where everyone was like, "What the hell is this type of music? This dance move? What's going on here?"
Exactly. And it was like history just repeating itself in a different kind of way. It was just so weird that it was happening. I mean, I felt like I had kind of moved on, because the beginning of the 80s, I had the first number one song of the 80s, and then I had another huge song, in the middle of the 80s, and then I had Give It Up, and then I kind of retired for 10 years. So I just was trying to just avoid the whole thing or ignore the whole thing because it just didn't make sense to me. Again, it just the clubs are getting bigger. They got bigger. Um, During that time that I retired, I went to clubs every weekend or whatever, and they were huge. I mean, they were bigger than anything I'd ever seen in my life, and the
Mhm.
lights, the music and stuff. And it was just, again, it was just more like electronic. And I mean, you couldn't be more disco than Madonna or any of those groups that came out of England or whatever the big tech sounds that came out of England at the time, which was a lot of most of it really.
You brought up a good point because yeah, like I did see that you did quit in the 80s for quite a bit of time, right? But there was also a point in the 80s that you did go through like a little bit of a dark time where like you did get in that car accident. You got addicted to painkillers, but these are things that you overcame, which I actually really admire you for. And I think this is what a lot of people look up to you for certain reasons because not only are you a great musician, you have great music, but you're a guy who has conquered, a dark time in your
Right.
life, right? What motivated you through those times? Because I read that you had to relearn how to play piano, how to relearn how to dance, and I want to just know that time in your life and what was going on in your mind and having to kind of go through that phase.
Once I decided to, sadly, I enjoyed all the craziness that I was doing, and I didn't look beyond anything. And because the period that the 10 years or whatever it was that we were really hot and everything, it was a very lonely time for me. And I just, even though I'd had all the success, I was still the same person I was before the success. Nothing changed who I am or who I am inside or whatever. Everybody else maybe felt that I changed, but in my own head, I was just this person, and I kind of missed a lot of that. And I wanted to get back to that somehow, or just enjoy the moment. Everything before was so much pressure, and I had to be here, and I had to do this, and I had this deadline, and that had to meet this, what I mean, or whatever. And so at one point, it just got really overwhelming. I felt that like I had written every melody that can be written at that point or whatever, and I just wanted out of it. I felt that the recording business had gotten very political, and I just didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore, Adam. I just wanted out or whatever. But then in '95, Arsenio Hall wanted to, a friend of mine said, "Did you hear Arsenio Hall wanted to see a reunion of the band on his show?" And I decided to do that show. And all of a sudden the bells went off in my head, like, my fathers would always say, never give up. And so here I'd given up. I had let go of everything. And all of a sudden I realized, like, I had stopped doing something that I loved to do all my life, that all I dreamed of and all I wanted to do was that. The only problem was I was still hooked on the stuff. And so as I went back out there and tried, I mean, I never really went on stage high per se. I would get high after the show and then not really do anything during the day of a show. But still I was getting high, after the show, everything was wide open, whatever.
Hmm.
So I had to make a decision that, either it's the drugs or my career. And my career was much more important than doing the drugs. So in '95, I checked myself into a rehab and stayed there for 3 months and, got clean, got off of it. So, and it was like being born again. It was like, this is who I was when I was 23. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was it's just the best thing I ever did. I mean, even when I quit smoking, it was all because of my career. You know, uh, uh, when you have a career, you got to think of the right things to do that are for your career. You can't just do it. You can't have it both ways. You really can't. You don't
No, you gotta
last.
you gotta sacrifice, right? Like it's like what I'm trying to do with my career, right? Like I'm trying to be an actor and like my goal is to be who knows, maybe be a talk show host too, hopefully, right? But you can't, yeah, you have to sacrifice and you have to, as Rocky Balboa would say, you gotta take the hits, you know what I mean? And it's really true.
It's a sacrifice for all of this. A
Yeah.
huge sacrifice.
Yeah, and I truly believe that if you want it that bad, you'll do whatever it takes to get it, and you won't let anything get in the way. And that's why I really admire someone like you who checked himself into rehab, who took the necessary steps to get better, to put yourself out there. And sometimes it takes the people like your fans to remind you how special you are, right? When you took that time off and you came back and you realized, I read online, you read, like you said that, oh, people really missed me, and it was a nice thing to see.
It's like, it's like, wow, I am missed. You know what I mean? They want to see us. They want to see me out there, and I had to do it, get back to what I loved. I totally lost touch with that part of it, that part of the dream. And you can never do that. I almost made the biggest mistake in my life at that point, really, because one of my dearest friends was a DJ on the R&B radio station. Her name was Vanilla Williams. And she was a good friend of my mother's too. But one time she came to me and she says, I just want to tell you something. Consider your life or your career as a ladder. Always take steps up the ladder. It's okay to hold on a step, but never take a step down, because then you have to keep going down. And so I've always kept that in my head about that ladder and taking steps up, holding and taking a step up, hold and take a step up. And I almost took too many steps down.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you got to work with so many cool people, right? And it's one of those things where you have to kind of you have to remind yourself too that like all the accomplishments you've done, to really make sure you don't take those steps down. Like for example, you got to sing with Dolly Parton. You guys did like a collaboration together. and I watched the videos on YouTube, and I thought that was so cool because like I'm a big fan of Dolly Parton, right? So yeah,
Sweetheart, she's the best.
yeah, and it's like, even just doing that, that must have been such an amazing experience for you too, to collaborate with an icon like her. Like, what was, I guess, a fond moment or memory you have with performing with her?
Well, I mean, I just did her TV show recently. She did the pet what was it called? The pet gala. And
Oh,
she
okay, yeah, yeah.
about did Boogie Shoes with me again on that. I mean, she's just a sweet, we had the same managers at the time back in the late 70s and 80s. And so our paths would cross, and she had her TV show, and it was fun. It was always fun. I mean, like here I am, just this kid from Hialeah or whatever, and and here I am on these TV shows that like Merv Griffin show, and Johnny Carson never would have me on because he said I was too commercial or too I don't know what he called it at the time, but I got a good laugh on it. But I was on everybody else. And even like, doing singing with Donnie and Marie on their show, and now we're really, really, we're good friends, and just the opportunities that I had, and the people that I admired, that I was sitting at home watching on TV. Now here I am singing with them on their shows, talking with them, having interactions with them. It's just, and it's what a blessing. What I mean, you know, how lucky am I to have been able to do that, or still be able to do that? It's just it's mind-boggling at times, really.
Yeah, and it almost kind of feels surreal, like I would imagine, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's like, wait, is this a dream? Wake me up. I mean,
Yeah, and I almost feel like, again, I'm not in though in that scenario where I'm working with my idols, right? But it's like, well, I mean, it's funny. I get to talk with people like you who I look up to, and I've listened to my whole life, so that is already a blessing in itself. But what I mean is like, I almost feel like you never get used to it, and that's a good thing. You always get those butterflies when you see someone that you admire, or you know. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe there's people out there who are so desensitized to it. They go, "Oh yeah," like for example, let's say like I'm an actor. I go, "Oh yeah, okay, there's Al Pacino. Okay, yeah, I've seen him already." It's like, no, I feel like you see someone like that, and you always get the butterfly. Like that's Al Pacino, or that's so and so, and like you just get that feeling where it's like, I'm really doing this. I'm living my dream.
and the thing is, like, even beyond, like, you know, being with people that I admired or looked up to, I get really excited when I see young talent, and and can spend a moment with them, or just I want to go meet them and just say hello, and just it's because I've been there, and it's just I just want to share that moment with them, and I get really excited. Like I've got tickets to go see Dan and Shay, and I want to meet them so bad. I
Hmm.
just want to say hello to them and everything, and I'm working on that one. But yeah, and it's just just great moments. Like a few weeks ago, I went to go see Rod Stewart, and I hadn't seen him in a long time, and went backstage, and it was just like, just like old times, just like, how you doing, man? So good to see you again, and that kind of feeling. It's just it's magical. It really is. It's magical.
Yeah, for sure, man. And like, I've listened to your songs, for example, in like some of my favorite movies, like, for example, Super Bad, Forrest Gump, Carlito's Way, Legally Blonde, and there's so much more. The list goes on. But like, do you have like a favorite movie moment where one of your songs was used, and like, if so, what made it special for you?
Well, I mean, the Forrest Gump one was really cool. And of course, Saturday Night Fever with Boogie Shoes. Well, recently was just that movie, Cabin in the Woods.
Oh yeah, 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 Cabin in the Woods, yes.
And like all of a sudden they're in the car singing Boogie Shoes. It's like
Was
that
that
was
the
really,
one? That was the one with Dave Bautista, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's timeless, your music, man. It's timeless. And like there's actually one movie, Austin Powers 3. Have
Oh,
you
yeah. Swear. Matter of fact, I have photos. Of course, I had talked to Beyonce on the phone before I met her, and her and Mike Myers. I went on that set when they were actually filming, the song and stuff. So I've got great photos on my wall of that day.
That is
with
so cool. Yeah, because it's like the way they twisted the lyrics. It's gold, it's gold. It worked out so perfectly.
no, I know. It,
Wow. Yeah, you gotta send me those pictures one of these days. I would love to see them. That'd be awesome, man.
yeah, it was quite a great moment. I had talked to Beyonce at one point. I almost got to co-write one of the songs with her, but I guess she didn't like my words at the time or something.
It's okay. Hey, it's art at the end of the day, right? Some people may not understand your art, or that's how it goes, right?
Yeah.
You know. My last question for you, Casey, is, what aspects of yourself and your music do you believe connect with multiple generations, and what message do you hope they get from it?
The music was just a positive message. I mean, the songs are sort of love songs. They are about being in love. Like that's the way I like it. It's like when you're with someone, the things you like about, when you're with them, all those things or whatever. Shake Your Booty was more of a kind of not a protest song, but a song to make people, like don't give yourself a chance to enjoy life. Give yourself a chance to do things and don't worry about what somebody else says. Realize how good you are and how, you're the best in the world too. You're as good as everybody else.
Mhm.
Get out there and just do it. You know what I mean? But for the most part, the songs were, you know, I, I remember one time Paul McCartney requested our catalog or whatever. We sent it to him, and next thing you know, he came out with a song called "Silly Love Songs," and I always felt like he wrote that after he'd seen my catalog and said, "Well, these are just silly love songs." But I mean, I'm sure that didn't happen, but it just
Yeah,
was
yeah. It's just funny coincidence. Yeah.
incidental, yes. So, but they were about love and being in love, and I mean, of course, you can interpret them any way you want to, and but yeah, that's what I write. I write about how I feel about someone I'm with and who I would like to be with, and or can't be with, or whatever. I mean, those are the things that they're kind of is it autobiographical? Is that the
Yeah,
word?
I guess so. Yeah. You bring yourself, I guess, yourself in the songs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, nothing wrong with that, man. I'm a very I'm a lover more than a fighter. But as Keanu Reeves says, you can't be you can't be a lover, not a fighter, because if you got to fight for your love. That's what he says.
Yeah.
He's
He's
right about that. But you know what, man? At the end of the day, it's great to see people like even like my age and younger still listening to your music, and it's being passed down by generation. So, I just want to say thank you again for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and yeah, it was great to just hear your story, to talk about your music and everything, and very very grateful that you did this today, Casey. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I really appreciate it. And when I got your request, I was like, far out, man, because I've watched your channel here, quite a few times, and I enjoy watching you. So I wish you all the best, also, and it's a great thing you're doing and having fun, and it's just great to see someone just grab the bull by the horns and go out there and do it and get it done. And it seems like what you're doing. And I wish you all the best. And thank you so much for allowing me to spend a few moments with you.